Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Sportsball Podcast. Finally, it's been a hot minute since we've gotten together, so we're going to hopefully get back on our regular scheduled programming now with college football and NFL coming back, since that's the sport we know best, I would assume. Maybe Nate's good with basketball, I guess, but I am Zach, here with my co-hosts, Andy and Nate. And like I said, we are finally back after what we call our summer break. So I feel like we should talk about what we've all done on our summer break before we get into sports. You know, everybody wants to know what we've been doing. A whole lot, it sounds like.
A whole lot of working and not playing hard.
Yeah, word up.
It turns out air conditioning pretty important out on the West Coast here. You know,
where it's been like
July on record.
100 degrees plus for how many consecutive days?
Too many.
Yeah.
That's scientific term actually for it.
That's nothing. Just pull yourself up.
He's basically telling you to get over it.
A snake and a boot.
It's a skill issue. It's a skill issue.
Get a better gaming chair.
Literally. Better headset and everything. Well, to kind of recap where we left off, I believe as we were talking about this beforehand, and correct me if I'm wrong, we had the NBA finals wrapping up and the Olympics were getting ready to gear up. And then obviously in there is the MLB season that we so very well kept up with because we're all just major baseball fans. Trying, but man, it's tough when there's 4,000 games a season. Anyway, I guess we can just start with an Olympics recap, which I'm going to be honest is going to be you two because
we're the best. That's all you need to know.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. Next segment.
Next. No, I mean, in terms of going into it, I did not think I was going to watch as much of it as I actually did end up watching. Obviously, a lot of that is tougher when they're 6 hours ahead. They're on most of the day when most people in America are working. But like even on the weekends, I found myself like 8 a.m. to 2, 3 o'clock whenever they get finished up over there. Just found myself watching the Gold Zone broadcast of what they did. Spectacular this year. And if you don't know if you didn't watch it or didn't know what it was basically NFL Red Zone, but for the Olympics. And they brought in, Scott Hansen and, the other guy that does the NFL Network Red Zone. I forgot who his name was, but they brought them both
Scott
in.
Hansen and the other guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. But they brought those guys in. They did kind of like an NFL Red Zone version of the Olympics, and it was electric because I wanted to watch the obscure events anyways, but they did it for me. They just picked up the events. They're like, here's this weird obscure event that, America's not in, but we're going to let you watch it anyways. I'm like, I'm intrigued. Like Taekwondo, not a chance I know how that scoring system works, but it looked cool. Fencing was really cool, I thought. I really got into that for some reason. And then
Such an odd name, though.
It is.
Fencing?
Yeah, it is. People just poke each other with a stick.
Why not just call it that?
Stabby stick.
Just pokey.
It's a sword, Andy.
Well,
it's a sword that's got like a little ball on the tip
at the end. Yeah,
right. So you can't actually physically stab
murder on live television.
Yeah, it turns out people have a problem with that. Weird.
But yeah, it was really enjoyable, and it was a very nice kind of ease into sports again for going into football season. And unless you were like a diehard baseball fan, I mean, you really didn't have anything after the finals ended for NBA, and you just kind of coasted in. So the Olympics were kind of a very nice ease. They were great to have for watching sports when nothing else was on for most of August. End of July, August time. But if we go to the American side, I mean, we knew that, Simone Biles, the whole U.S. women's gymnastics team was probably going to be the main headliner. in terms of who that or like the NBA team or the women's soccer team, men's soccer team, so on and so forth. Men's soccer team always disappointed, but what's new there? Women's soccer team did end up winning their gold medal game, and that was, they were. I don't know if they were favored to win that game just because Emma Hayes, the new coach, there's always some speculation with you bring in a new coach for, an Olympic Cup team or a World Cup, World Cup run, and you're like, are they going to be able to do it? And you're kind of seeing the shift in the U.S. women's soccer team where you're kind of getting out of the names that most people would know in terms of like Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, and you're kind of getting in the new generation, the younger athletes that people might not know their names, but I think certainly after watching the Olympics, you certainly know most of their names by now. So it was great to see them win gold. And then, the NBA team was something. Again, they were predicted to win gold, but there were times where, like, especially that Serbia game, you're like, I don't think they're going to win at all.
Jokic knows the buttons to push.
And it's weird when you have a two-time MVP doing everything that he possibly can to win the game. Kind of works out in your favor, whether you know how to stop him or not. He's kind of good at basketball, believe it or not. And then the women's basketball team.
Better.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron does not look like he's 40, 41. Like Jesus.
He was like back at his like age 25.
Yeah.
So.
Like he's running through dudes, springing dunks, posterizing people, and I'm like, he literally looked like he was still in his prime.
Mm-hmm.
You might still say he's kind of still in that prime. He's just 40 years older, type thing. But yeah,
he's gonna be playing into his 60s.
Yeah, it's
look like old grandpa out there.
Every year I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be the one where we start to see the trend down, and LeBron just either maintains or just finds some new level just to take it up a little bit. With that,
my favorite tweet. There's like a tweet that goes around anytime he does well. That it's from like 6 years ago or something, where someone's like, "Thank goodness we only have like 5 more years of LeBron."
So another 5 years. It's kind of like the Tom Brady effect.
Yeah, I was going to say, I am curious how much longer he has. Not that basketball is necessarily it's not as combative as like football. Mm-hmm. So like, there is a chance that, well, yeah, I guess that's fair. But I mean, like, there is a chance that like LeBron could go just as long as Tom Brady did. And even Tom Brady is seen as the anomaly in football at this point.
Right.
So I'd be curious how long he has left, how long before he takes over and coaches Bronny up.
Mm-hmm. And that's, he was incredible to watch. And obviously, the finals game was all about Chef Curry and the incredible.
Some of those shots he put up were, if it was anyone else, you'd question it.
Yes. But it's like, that's the only player you trust in that situation to shoot it because it's probably going to go in. And they all did at the end there. And it was one of those where I saw online after, it's like, so this is what it's like to be a Golden State fan every single day and to root for Steph Curry. And I'm like, I kind of get the feeling like, yeah, I would love that too if I was a Golden State fan. Just knowing that like when the game's on the line, it's going to be in his hands. And unless you triple team him, it's probably going to go in type shot. So
don't bandwagon Golden State though. Come on.
I'm not.
Obviously not, but I'm just saying.
It was funny just to see that.
If you're looking for a basketball team, don't go for them.
No,
that's all I'm saying.
And then, of course, obviously, KD after every single game, just getting on. I think it was like 4 or 5 a.m. tweets in Paris. He'd just be sending out burner accounts. It's like, okay, KD's going to do what he does. Half
of that comes from me just loving the fact that he plays for the Suns. So it's like awesome. Yeah. But also like he's hilarious. Like perfect. It's a perfect mash.
He totally did away with his burner account and just started doing it on his main account.
Yeah, he just shit posts on his own account.
Yeah. Just he doesn't care anymore, I don't think. But yeah, that was fun. And then, yeah, you get to, I mean, even the track and field, swimming, gymnastics. I mean, it was all just incredible to watch. Katie Ledecky still a phenomenal swimmer. And, I still think she's trying to gear up for, what is it, 2028 in LA? Yeah. So there's a chance she still might swim one more time in the Olympics, and who knows what that's going to look like. But, she's a very dominant swimmer in every event that she did. And then obviously Simone, the GOAT of gymnastics in the entire world, for sure. And just watching her dance routines and her, I mean, the floor, I don't even know half of these gymnastics terms either. I only know the floor. That one I'm more impressed. Like, I was the most impressed by, like the floor routines and everything. But she's the GOAT, and I don't think there will be ever. It's going to be pretty tough to find somebody that'll be that dominant in gymnastics.
My favorite thing with Simone Biles, especially when it comes to the Olympics, is every time somebody shares a picture of her next to Shaq, and it's just, it is a massive difference.
Yeah, massive difference.
Okay. It's like his shoe size is the size of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, outside of that, I mean, like I'd started, America's the best, 125 total medals. We tied China for 40 gold medals, but we technically get first because we had more silver medals than they did. So we are obviously the best country in the entire world. Asterisk.
History
in
of
athletics.
Ever.
In athletics.
In athletics.
Other things could be argued, but we won't do that today.
Yes. No. Definitely nothing that's going to be happening in November or anything like that.
we shall see.
Thanksgiving?
Yes. Thanksgiving.
The Nebraska Iowa game?
Yes. The celebration.
The NFL Black Friday games, yes.
Well, so we'll unless there's anything else you guys want to touch on, I have nothing else. I didn't get to watch much of them, so I got nothing else to add. Nate, anything from you?
Not too much, no. I was just, I'll echo what Andy said about Gold Zone being pretty goated, because there were a lot of, events that I just didn't know existed or how they even worked, and it kind of just was able to put a spotlight, even if it was just on the gold medal, match or event. Like, it was able to showcase a lot of things and look at a lot of events I probably wouldn't have, tried to take a look at. Anyways, although the one I was really disappointed in was breaking. I thought there was going to be a little more
like the break
to that one, but yeah.
And that one, I think they're iffy on if they're going to bring it back for 2028.
Yeah,
I think they've already said they're not. I think they said it's breakdancing is gone for 2028. Mm-hmm. But I think I thought I read somewhere that like it's up to like the place where it's at. So like LA made the decision rather than like the Olympics overall. But I don't know if that's true. But I don't know. I still go back to the point where I said breakdancing, while interesting and cool, is to me not. I shouldn't say it's not something that should be in the Olympics, but the fact that got in before something like Olympic darts is still just weird to me. And I understand, like darts
would be so electric.
Would it not be though? Or like, and I know we had this talk last time, I think, but like Olympic billiards or whatever. I'm sure that's got to be a thing. But like, there's so many other things, and I won't. I'm not that right. Not that breakdancing is necessarily a bar game or a bar trick, but like. Bring bar games to the Olympics. Oh, well, my favorite Olympics are coming up in a couple of years anyway with the winners. So snowboarding, curling. I don't know what it's called, but where they like ski down and then launch and then just go as far as they can on that ramp. Always fun to watch. Where are the Winter Olympics? Do we know?
I feel like we looked this up. So.
It's not a big. It's got a couple of years.
Let's look. I feel like we did mention this before.
What? It's in LA too? What is going on?
I want to say Italy.
I feel like that sounds right, but I don't remember.
I think it's Italy.
We got a couple years to worry about it. All right.
Yeah,
well,
it's definitely Italy.
Cool. Turns out you need snow to have Winter Olympics, I think. So
some days.
Debatable. Some days. I mean, at least for the outdoor stuff. That might help.
Right.
Call me crazy.
A little bit.
All right. So, like I said, we're going to hit on this quick just because we haven't, I personally haven't kept up with it. Maybe you guys have, but MLB is still MLBing.
I mean, I have simply just for my team, but I know that just like the division races are definitely a lot closer than
AL Central.
than they were.
Nuts.
Yeah, Central, the AL East is, between just, I mean, it's the Yankees and the Orioles, but I mean, they're a game and a half between each other. Yeah, you got 3 teams within 2 games of each other in the Central.
The Twins
Astros-
are only 4 or 5 games back of first place in the AL, which is a weird sentence to say at almost September.
Right.
Actually, though, the big news that came out of the MLB so far is that the Chicago White Sox have been eliminated from the playoffs. Usually this happens later, from my understanding, but somehow that one wasn't shocking.
Yes. At their, what are they currently at? They are 31 and 98. So they are on pace. Yeah, they are on pace for one of the worst records in MLB history, with about a month to go.
Yep.
With that, so can they win 12, 13 more games? Who knows? We'll see.
And it's probably not terribly shocking, but they fired. I can't think of his name right now, but they fired his manager.
Yeah, that should have happened. I don't know why they did it now, because what's going to change? Like, just let him ride out the season and then fire him.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know how baseball works in terms of like coaching, but like you might find somebody that's like on a team that might be in the lower half of the league, but you could find somebody that's like, hey, they might be able to turn the team around with the White Sox, and they come from somewhere else. I don't know. It could be one of those things where they're just like opening it up early to be like, come to Chicago, known destination hotspot, Chicago.
Who wants to coach them? That's the issue. You got to find someone willing to go to the lesser Chicago team to coach them.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, people from Chicago are very much Camp White Sox or Camp Cubs. And
right.
I mean, I get it. I understand, like, you have to have some allegiance to a team, but like,
right.
Dang.
But yeah.
All right. Well,
it's there's a lot of tight races coming down to the end that, maybe a month ago I thought the Orioles were probably going to take the AL East, and sure enough, the Yankees came back and now they're choking it again per usual. With that, and then Dodgers they're not running away with the West. The Diamondbacks are certainly catching up. But, Milwaukee's probably going to win their division. Philly's probably going to win their division now that everybody on the Braves is dying. Apparently.
RP Spencer Strider.
Yeah, it's I think I had picked the Braves to be, in contention for the World Series this year. And that certainly is not starting to pan out like I had thought. But such is baseball.
Yeah, that
I have
sounds
nothing
about
else
right.
on that.
I mean, as a Cardinals fan, I've kept up just like on paper essentially, and they could make a early exit playoff run kind of thing, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how they fare because they've not done horrible, but without watching the games, I don't really have any good insight, and it's not like I would have good insight anyway based on not knowing anything about baseball. So
I'm still in the playoff race in both of my fantasy baseball leagues. That's about all I know.
Good for you. Good for committing to that.
Well, I guess then we'll start with this one with the NFL, just because preseason's going on now. Not a whole lot of news has happened, but then we're going to get to the big segment at the end here. But NFL, I know we were
has
talking a little
been
bit
canceled
about it
this year. We're trying again in 2025.
If you're looking for one team's perspective, don't listen to Nate.
Yeah,
NFL is certainly not canceled.
Yeah, as a Vikings fan, I feel like there's some pain from the camp of the Vikings fan, and I understand
we're
most people that are not Vikings fans that hear me say there's pain from the Vikings camp are like, yeah, that's normal.
Oh wow,
This is
another
different.
year.
This is a different type of pain where it's like even if you're a fan of rooting against the Vikings, this is one of those years where you're like, man, this just feels cruel at this point.
At
Because
least my hope is that we're getting all the pain out before the season starts.
that's
You
a
would
fair
hope.
point. So I know I've obviously kept up with JJ being out for the season with the meniscus. Is there anybody else? Because I know a lot of people have gone out injured from like preseason games and practices and stuff. But has anybody else gone out like for the year that I've missed?
We lost a cornerback toward ACL. I can't remember who. But Jordan Addison had an ankle injury. He's been out of practice, I think, the past 2 weeks now. And then, I mean, we had our third or fourth round pick die in a car accident earlier in the summer as well. So,
Gotcha.
and Jordan Addison got arrested for DUI shortly after that happened, and still waiting to hear the verdict of the suspension for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's fun, especially as a Vikings fan. That's got to
great
be
vibes coming.
I just say the vibes got to
Sun
be
camp
feeling
for
real
them.
great there. Well, as an Eagles fan, I'm the opposite. I mean, I will say this as an Eagles fan is that I'm hopeful for this year because we should have one of the top 5 offenses, I would say easily, as long as Jalen Hurts continues to, well, he's come out and said he was playing hurt last year, which could just be an excuse, could also
Lines
be
up with the name though.
Yeah.
says the Vikings fan. But yeah, that's fair, I guess. But anyway, he was playing through, I think, a knee injury or something, like a lingering knee injury, not one that required any kind of surgery. I don't remember. Anyway, not the point. He's playing through an injury, and so he looked a step slower. So I'm almost half tempted to just cut you off, but go ahead. That one was terrible.
What if Hurts isn't actually his last name, and he's just like always been perpetually in pain?
Okay, that is kind of funny.
It's
Be like
yeah,
Blue
he's
Mountain,
got a point.
like
Blue
I'm
Mountain
sad.
State or whatever. He's like, my name's not actually Thad, it's
Thad.
Kevin.
It's Kevin.
How'd you come to be called Thad? Because he had a lisp. I'm really Thad.
I'm really sad.
Jalen just
So
hurts.
Jalen, how are you good to go in? Nah, Jalen Hurts. Yes, he knows his name. Okay.
Right out the window.
Okay, you did redeem yourself a little bit with that pun. I'll give you that. But anyway, as an Eagles fan, offense is shaping up to be if they can execute really well. I mean, with Kellen Moore, who for all intents and purposes had a pretty good year with the Chargers, just didn't really see the results, I guess, as in like his schemes and executions and everything that he wrote up were good, especially when you have Justin Herbert as a quarterback. But, then the rest of the Chargers stuff happened. And obviously the Chargers are going to be the one to watch this year with Jimmy H coming back and wanting to see how he does in the NFL now that he can't go back to college for a while.
No, he cannot.
Which we can touch on that in the college football segment. I guess
he's going to be in the NFL for a while.
I'm sure he's going to be there for a bit.
He knew nothing. What do you guys mean?
And yeah, Eagles defense should be good. I think the concern there is just its defense, and last year's Eagles team just crumbled. So here's to hoping that they get it figured out this year, but we'll see. Hopeful not. This is also, I guess, from my understanding, kind of a make or break year for Nick Sirianni, which I get because, I mean, I think there's plenty of backup plans in place. If Kellen Moore does really good with the offense and Nick doesn't execute his job, I could see Kellen Moore taking over as head coach. He seems like he's young and upcoming. I don't know if I necessarily think he's the best, but whatever.
Your quarterback doesn't like your coach.
Yeah, that whole thing is weird to me too, because, and as much as I love Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, like watching his press conferences has just gotten to a point where he's like after you read like a philosophical book or two, and all of a sudden you're like, I am the smartest human ever, and his press conferences are just filled with stuff like that. It's like, the goal is to be the best that we can be. It's like, wow, insightful. Like, and I get it. He's intentionally being coy too, but it's
Right.
like, dude, come on. Just 10, like you could shave off 8 minutes of your press conferences by just not saying a bunch of words that equal nothing.
Right.
But anyway, that is the point. What's Denver doing?
Trying not to cry about how much we're paying Russell Wilson. But which that situation just keeps getting funnier and funnier at Pittsburgh. I have absolutely no idea who they're going to trot out for the Steelers. Not a damn chance.
I'd almost find it hilarious if they don't even know.
I'm sure it's going to be Russell for like 2 or 3 weeks until Tomlin gets sick of him, and then he'll bench him for Fields. And then he'll realize, like, oh, this was a grave mistake to have these two guys in this room.
I'll be curious. I could see Justin Fields popping off just because he's pissed about how Chicago treated him.
Well, Chicago's a bad franchise, so
I don't know. Hey, they're going to turn around this year with Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
this is the year.
This draft class for them is actually pretty good.
Yeah, but here's the other thing: is they got to put it together.
The issue is, yes, their head coach is still their head coach.
Surely they'll figure out how to play football this year.
Will they?
Yeah.
I'll give Caleb Williams credit. He at least, and I know it's preseason. I know everybody wants to sit that, but he did at least look somewhat poised to play in the NFL in preseason games. Like,
right.
He looks like he could be good. And I'm only saying could because preseason is, I don't want to call it a write-off. It's still them playing, but it's not the full game.
Right.
The question then becomes, can he play a full game? Can he make those really crazy Patrick Mahomes like passes and stuff where can he do that for 4 quarters where he needs to? Can he bring the team back when they're eventually going to be down? Obviously remains to be seen. But I think I don't necessarily want to cheer for him because I thought he was overhyped as hell coming out of college football. But I digress.
Yeah, you could certainly apply that to how I feel about Bo Nix in Denver right now is, yes, it's certainly an upgrade. And just, from the very limited 2 preseason games that Bo has played, I mean, he looks like he just controls the offense. And, I know I've seen a lot of comparisons of like, it's just going to be like, Sean Payton's just going to treat him like how Drew Brees ran Sean Payton's offense. And, that worked out for a lot of years. And it's one of those things where like, yeah, I would obviously love to, catapult to, where the Chiefs are right now and everything. But, if Denver can just have a consistent offense and, a quarterback that I don't hate and a coach that doesn't hate my quarterback, I think things are going to go optimistically well. Now, I'm obviously not saying we're winning the division because, you got, as much as I want to chug that Kool-Aid, you're still in a division with Patrick Mahomes. And until the team proves that they can dethrone them, it's going to be nearly hard to try to win that division year in and year out until Mahomes slips up or Mahomes is not on the Chiefs anymore or Andy Reid's not there. And there's going to be a world where we don't see Andy Reid with the Chiefs, but Mahomes will still be there. So what is that going to look like at some point? Who knows when that'll be, but it's certainly going to happen. But yeah, I'm keeping my expectations just kind of a mid-level. I think if they can just have a winning season just above 500 for the first time since Peyton won the Super Bowl, I mean, that's just a step in the right direction. And their schedule's not super favorable this year. I mean, they have the one of their cross divisions is the AFC North, which that's a juggernaut to begin with. So you're already in the division where you play, the 2-time reigning Super Bowl champs twice a year, on top of having to play the Bills or the Bengals, the Ravens, Steelers, and the Browns this year. So it's going to be, I could see them easily, winning 5 games. I can also see them winning close to 9 or 10 games. It's all going to be very dependent on who is at quarterback for them. And if Bo stays healthy enough for the entire year, that's certainly a chance that they could win some more games than not. But Yeah, I'm keeping my expectations low, and we're gonna keep it that way until we're 7-0 going into
Into Ohio State.
Yeah, I do Ohio State. Wait a minute. Wrong
Well,
segment.
speaking of 7-0, let's move on to college football. And of course, anybody that's listened to us, and if you have never listened to us before, one, obviously at this point, thank you for checking us out. Two, I should have mentioned this a long time ago, but I am in a hotel room, so that's why I look different than my normal setup. And three, we're all devout Husker fans.
You didn't upgrade your work office?
I did not. Although with this, I could have had a green screen the whole time. Darn it! I didn't think about it. I just now seem to connect that this is a green wall behind me. Darn. Anyway, we're all devout. We all are devout Husker fans, and so of course, college football for us is a huge time because Nebraska is always back after the off season. But on top of that, Nebraska might actually have a chance of becoming back into relevancy somewhat, maybe possibly this year. But
there's a couple qualifiers in this team.
well, we're trying to keep things in
My
check.
spidey senses picked something up there.
Well, we'll try to keep things
a
in check.
single loss on the schedule. You
We'll
want to
try
look at
to
that
keep
and you see a
things-
single loss? No way.
We will try to keep things in check here. We try to take fair and balanced accounts of everything that happens with our college football team. However, Nebraska's back, 14-0 or whatever the amount is. Let's go, baby. That said, of course, we'll start with Nebraska and then kind of filter through the rest of college football. I guess unless you guys want to go a different direction, but I figure we just start with Nebraska because that's
Start
what we
with
know.
Nebraska, go
Yeah.
to the lesser teams of college football. Yeah.
Right.
The lesser teams?
Well, I guess maybe we should start with this. We're recording this on August 24th, and this will come out obviously later than that. But college football is kicking off officially today. And so I think I can't
Right
speak
now.
for Nate, but I know Andy and I are both watching the Florida State and Georgia Tech game. So
In our favorite country, very good memories of that place too.
yeah.
Remember when he wrote down the railings before they got out of the plane? That looked like it was a real turning point in that season, and it was not.
He had confidence, and now we know where it went. It was in the extracurricular side of the football team. Anyway, starting with Nebraska, like I said earlier, Nebraska's back. No need to question it. It's official. Nebraska all the way for Natty champs this year. Dylan Raiola is going to be Heisman winner. Obviously, all the hot takes are coming out, but Nebraska
Wait,
has
what?
a legitimate chance this
They're
year.
hot takes?
Well, they're maybe lukewarm, maybe tepid takes. I don't know. We'll see. But Nebraska, I think, does legitimately have a chance of opening the season 7-0. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, obviously. Like the mantra of the team so far, it seems like this year or ever since Rule got here, is one game at a time, or even one day at a time. They want to get 1% better every day. But for the sake of this discussion, to me, like the UTEP game is important to set the tone for the year, but the Colorado game is going to define the year for me. A lot of people are already saying that Raiola could be a huge deal. I think he certainly could be, but he's a true freshman quarterback, and there's a lot that goes into that. And I think Husker fans that are very optimistic, myself included, need to remember that he's going to make true freshman mistakes. The step up from high school to Big Ten football is a step. And while I think he will do well, I think he'll adapt well. And from everything we've heard, he's adapting well in practices and stuff, and he's showing out and doing really well there. And obviously he's worked with Patrick Mahomes. He's his godfather is it Matt Stafford? Is that correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
So, I mean, he's got his lineage that he is going down here, and the people he's working with. Glenn Thomas coming in as quarterback coach. Not only is he really good at his job, obviously, but he also made Kalen and Heinrich look really good during the spring game,
Mhm.
which I understand. They were playing Nebraska. But still, Heinrich looked a lot different, and that was enough for me to sell me on Glenn Thomas. So again, my overall point is, yes, I think there's a legitimate chance that Nebraska could pull off a 7-0 going into, is it Ohio State?
Yeah.
So there's a legitimate chance they could pull off a 7-0 going into that game. I think the game that everybody's going to be watching for outside of UTEP, because it's the first game, is Colorado. Mm-hmm. And of course, Dumpling Dion is going to have to answer for
that whole
how his
situation
team
is
doing.
weird.
For those that don't know, and we'll just summarize it real quick. He has officially blacklisted a staffer on the
Denver
Post. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so the team or him or anybody that's on the team, anybody that's related to the team in any way will not take questions from, I can't remember his name at the Denver Post.
It's just one specific reporter at the Denver Post.
For specific things that he's called Dion, which, there's more to it than that, but it's like, bro, you're in the spotlight. You didn't bring Colorado back to its glory days last year. And this year is kind of based on stories coming out of the Colorado camp right now. Mm-hmm. Kind of seems like it might not happen this year either. Right. That's not me saying it's not. That's, don't stone me, Colorado fans, but just saying, there's a lot with Dion that's going on this year, but that's my game. Depending on how we play UTEP. If UTEP's a close game, I'm going to be nervous. If we come out and we beat UTEP handedly, I'm excited for Colorado.
Absolutely. And it's, there's, if you guys, and for anybody, there's the Chasing 3 kind of documentary on Nebraska Athletics YouTube website right now. It's kind of their own version of Hard Knocks, but it's all like, produced in-house and everything. So you don't really get, Matt Rule has the final say on what gets put out. So there are some things he keeps away, some things he purposely puts out there that, he wants the world and the media to see. If you're looking for highlights of Dylan, don't bother watching it because you're not going to find any for a reason. But, it's just so intriguing to see kind of how Matt Rule and his staff are as coaches of how they get guys mentally prepared, how they practice, how they get on them. And it's such a different vibe from watching Scott, talk to the press, be a coach essentially. And Rule, and obviously we've all been on the Rule train before, but it's just, there's something different of just how he approaches things. Obviously we knew the minute Dylan committed that he was going to be the day one starter. And it obviously took until last week for him to officially, or probably earlier this week, officially announce that Dylan was going to start game one against UTEP. And you're we knew that, but Rule is all about you have to earn your spot in camp. You have to earn your position, your playing time, and so on and so forth. And he did let a true QB battle play out. And it's obviously everybody who knew who one was going to be. I'm more interested who's going to be two, whether that's going to be Heinrich or Daniel. And
Dalen, that's his new name. We're calling him.
both combining both. Daniel Dalen. Almost very similar to Dylan. But yeah, I'm interested to see who's the backup quarterback, because if Nebraska's history has served them any right, is we will need a backup quarterback at some point in the season, unfortunately. But that's just the reality that those seasons have gone for Nebraska, for 10 years or something like that. But it's very interesting because I know that if Heinrich isn't going to be starting, are they going to use him at a 2? Are they going to, or a tight end? Are they going to use him in some sort of a wildcat goal line play? Where you have, maybe Dylan and you have Heinrich in the backfield. And you can do some weird, funky stuff because he can be a Taysom Hill type runner. And it's certainly, like I said, Taysom Hill is the prime example in the NFL right now. You can kind of put him anywhere. Now, not that I think that Matt Rule is doing that on purpose, but it's very similar to how you could use Heinrich if he's not going to be your starting quarterback. That said, I don't think you want to I mean, the tight end room is pretty stocked right now in terms of Borkature, Fedoni. You know, you technically could move Carter Nelson there, but they're kind of working out Carter Nelson as a wide receiver right now. And I think that's just to get him more
Specifically a
reps.
slot, right?
Yes. And that's just to get him
Yeah.
more reps because the tight end room is so stacked right now of who to get the ball to, which is a good thing. I mean, I've always been one that we have lacked our tight ends because, you know, that season we had Austin Allen. I mean, why not just throw a 50-50 ball to him to like a 6'5" tight end every single play? We just didn't do that. You know,
There's a team in the NFL that's done a really, really good job with using their tight end. And I know Andy doesn't like them, but they're a good benchmark to look at if we're really going to do that, honestly.
And
about it.
it's, you know,
there's really two that you can point at, and both
Yeah.
of them are. It sucks to be a fan of if you're not.
right.
It sucks to have to root for them for any reason.
Right. And if you compare it to the college level, I mean, Iowa's also a prime example of the tight end university, essentially. So it's something Nebraska has lacked. And yes, probably a lot of that is the quarterback play that contributes to that, where we've had a lot of mobile quarterbacks more than true passing quarterbacks recently, where you have, you know, Martinez. I mean, Tommy, yes, was a passing quarterback, but he did run a lot too.
Tommy Legstrong.
Yes, Tommy Legstrong. You know, both Martinez's. Obviously, last year was just such a fluke. It's so hard to compare to what last year was, just because everything went wrong at all the wrong times.
What do you mean?
Everything.
We had
everything.
the next Mahomes named, I believe it was Jeffrey Sims.
That name does not ring a bell to me
pretty
anymore.
big Amigos deal, if I recall correctly.
Name does not ring a bell to me anymore. But
I mean, I get it. That Amigos was fire, so
yeah. So then, yeah, I mean, you can look at any position you want to play Heinrich, and he can be an asset on offense. It's just how does Rule want to use him? And this is kind of one of the first times where I think we're pretty solid at every position on offense, but the running back room. And the running back room, you've got dudes in there. It's just who is going to go and take it. Because you have the Oregon transfer Dante Dowdell, you have Emmett Johnson, you have Revere Johnson, you have Gabe Urban. I mean, names that we all have certainly seen play. Maybe not Dowdell because he's a transfer, but we've seen them all play. We've all seen them have flashes, but neither one of those three guys that have been at Nebraska have really taken the number one role. And I think it's going to be important because if you're not going to run Dylan, you got to make the defense that you're playing against respect the run. And if they're just going to sit back and just sit in a zone coverage or press coverage and just play the pass the entire game because they know Nebraska can't run, then you put Dylan at a disservice too. So I'm really interested to see who comes out of running back number one and who is going to take that role and how is Rule going to use him? Are you going to try to get him 15, 20 touches a game, make him a bell cow running back, or are you going to split, those 15, 20 plus touches between two different backs a game? So there's just a lot of options. I just think the biggest thing is Nebraska has to make sure that they don't depend solely on Dylan's arm talent to win them games. They certainly have to respect. They have to respect that Nebraska can run the ball too. You have to make your opponent respect that, and that's what I'm really interested in. And now the reason I only say that we're stocked everywhere else because you have your wide receiver transfers of Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nayor. They came in to transfer, help bolster your roster at wide receiver on top of having Alex Bullock, Malachi Coleman, Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss. I mean, you have a plethora of options there that were just not there last year. You even have Isaiah Garcia Castanedas. Who knows how much he's going to play on the offense? He certainly can be a special teams asset, but he's coming off of that ACL injury or knee injury, whatever he had last year with that. But, you have a stacked roster of wide receivers for Dylan to throw to now. And obviously, with the offensive line, with Prohaska getting hurt, as we found out a couple weeks ago, tearing his ACL, it's a big position to fill on Dylan's blind side. I think Michael Marzuka, he's the Florida transfer, I think is primed to fill his position.
Big fella. He's like 6'8", 325 or something.
But I think behind him is a freshman guard. So you're kind of already thin at that position if, he gets hurt or anything like that. But, outside of that, you have 3 of your 5 returning starters on the line, which is a huge boost for Nebraska. So, yeah, a lot of the offense is going to come down to obviously Dylan, and that's going to be the main story throughout the entire season. Whether it's national, local, so on and so forth, Dylan is going to be 1A story. It's just what is going to be 1B story on the offense. And who's going to pick that up? Is it going to be one of the wide receivers? Is it going to be one of the running backs? So on. Who's going to make that next stamp that's not Dylan making every single play, making every highlight reel going out there with that. But with that, before I go into, we can go into defense too, unless Nate, you want some more offensive preview. I kind of turned that into an offensive preview section with that.
I could even, I'll cover both just briefly. I haven't had as, good of a internal look into how things have been going this summer yet. Just haven't had the chance to really dig deep on some of the things, but just in general, I think my thoughts are that I would like to see the offense take that step. That's kind of in line with what you guys are saying, where it's like the potential seems there. Like we have all the guys, the playmakers. We just need to put it together. I don't know. And what makes me nervous is with Teddy going down with a knee injury. Like, you're hoping that your transfer guy comes in and does well, and then, as you mentioned, hopes that he can stay healthy too in a place that apparently you're getting injured a lot, or maybe Teddy Prochaska is just a kind of glass cannon. But it's offensive line has been our struggle for a while, and it would be nice to see the offense just kind of pick up their side of the bargain.
100%, though.
A little more than because I fully expect the defense to take a step back. I don't think it's going to be like a big one, but just the personnel they lost and generally just, regression back to the mean. I don't think they're going to be quite as top tier as they were. I would love it if they were, top 10 again, but I don't really see that exactly panning out. And so if that happens, then the offense is going to need to we're going to need to score points somehow. And I don't know. That's just what makes me nervous going into the season. I think that Rule has a good base and a good, just chemistry with everyone to be able to put it together, but we just haven't seen it yet. And so it's kind of that, I don't know, fear of the unknown, if you will, of the potential, is sky high. We just haven't seen it all develop yet. So that's kind of where I'm at, I'd say. But
I think the secondary is probably our biggest concern. Defensive line, I think you're stacked, and even the middle portion of the linebacker unit, depending on how Tony sets up that scheme, whether you play with 5 defensive backs or 4 and you put more linebackers in there. But you got obviously you got big man Ty Robinson coming back. Jamari Butler is going to probably take a huge step this year. Cam Leonard, Riley Van Poppel, obviously the polar bear Nash Hutmaker. You have dudes on your defensive line that I think they need to take a step up, because those first couple of games we were getting sacks. We were getting to the quarterback. Especially we had 5 against Colorado, and a lot of that is Shadur is just a scramble type quarterback, so you can get to him. But as the season went on, then they kind of took that step back where they didn't get as many pass rushes, sacks that they were that we thought at the beginning of the season. So I would like to see that defensive line make that next step, is consistently putting the pressure on the quarterback, and we have the dudes to do it. These are going to be Ty Robinson, definitely Hutchmaker, probably going to be very close to all conference guys, probably trying to bid for all American bids if they just consistently have a good season. And then you got Isaac Gifford, a couple of other linebackers that I'm missing at the moment, but
Buford,
yeah, John Bullock,
yeah.
You have a solid middle. It's the secondary that's not Buford or Tommy Hill, is who is going to fill those slots. And that's where I think I agree with you, Nate, that defense takes I think there's not going to be a huge step back. It is going to be a step back.
It's not going to be quite as high powered as it was last year. Yeah.
No.
I think that was just kind of known that it was going to happen, though. Not to be like, oh, we all knew this, but more like you even looked at last year and you're like, like a lot of our first few games really helped prop up our defense to be statistically we were still good. No one's saying that we weren't, but it's also like, we had a lot of help in that statistical area where like our first 3 or 4 games we were cooking them on defense, where now it seems like you guys have said, the guys on the front need to step up. That's the one thing I want to see defense-wise. I want to see better pass rush. Our run defense, for the most part, was decent last year. I mean, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but it was there. So,
because now these teams have a year's worth of looking at former footage from last season of how Nebraska stacks up in that 3-3-5 scheme of Tony White's. So that's where I think, it can bite you in the butt a little bit too, is now these teams have seen a full year's worth of defense. What's that going to look like going forward? But yeah, it's, if your defensive line with the dudes that we have this year that are going to wreak some havoc is, can that secondary step up if we don't get to the QB and they scramble and try to make a play, is our secondary, fast enough to keep up with that type thing? And that's going to be, I think, where our biggest concern, our defense, is going forward. Because, as much as I would love to, keep teams to 10, 13 points every single game like we did last season, probably not a reality again. Am I saying they're going to let up 35? Not entirely. Ohio State probably is certainly a shot to do that, and that's just because it's Ohio State, a preseason national championship pick by a lot of people. So it's very interesting that, I'm excited for the defense, but I am a little wary of how much of that step back we are going to see this year.
Especially with just, again, like the potential's there for the offense to make the leap to be more, useful, I guess, if we are, not holding teams at 10, 13 points a game, but we just haven't seen it. And like you obviously hope that Dylan is able to just kind of elevate that offense from the get-go, but kind of as you mentioned, he's freshman quarterback coming into Big Ten place. There's going to be some hiccups along the way, and
I do think to that point, though, I think our offensive line, even with Teddy down, I think our offensive line is the one that's primed to take the step this year, where it's like we do see, because they're outside of Teddy going down, we do have a lot of we have a lot of experience on the rest of that line that I think is going to make a big difference, and that has kind of hardened themselves, iron sharpens iron kind of thing, where they've done this for a few years and they have finally. I'm not going to necessarily say that I'm overly confident that's going to happen, but we even saw the step happen last year where it's like, oh, this offensive line has gotten better. The problem was it just didn't mesh right away, it seemed like. And then by the time that they did start meshing, it was kind of too late. And then we had our quarterback problems, just all of the stuff that could go wrong in the game seemed to. And I mean, it happens. But I mean, like you said at the beginning, Andy, it's like this year, along with last year, you could even tell like the vibe was just different.
Yeah.
It still is. And I think there's something to be said for with Rule having his second year. Like, I know everybody keeps bringing up stats of like, oh, in Temple, he took them, from 1-7 or whatever the first 8 games to, whatever. And he made a huge jump, and then he did it at Baylor. Realistically, I think he's got the pieces in place to do it. I think he's got everything. I think the biggest question mark for me, not even on defense or offense, is going to be our special teams. It sounds like Tristan is doing okay. He's coming back from an injury.
He's not 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
the game against UTEP, if he's not 100%.
Yeah, and Ed Foley has said that he's kicking well, which is good. I think he's got the potential in the world to be a good kicker. And that would be really nice to have a consistent kicker anymore at Nebraska.
Right.
I think I've said this 47 times on our podcast in the past, but it's like, it's like I remember when Alex Henry would come up to kick, and I mean outside of like the 62-yarder or whatever, however long that one was, I don't think it was that far, but however long that one was against I think Colorado or whoever, it was like that was the only one I remember I had to watch. But like outside of that, if it was anything within like 40 yards, it was like I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Automatic, yeah.
And it was like I didn't have to worry about it outside of it randomly getting blocked, which even then didn't seem like that happened.
And to your point, I mean, Foley also said that our punt, like kick return game has to be better. I think he spoke either this week or last week. I think he said that we had like 48 total punt return yards last season, which is embarrassing because that just means you're fair catching a lot of it, or you're just letting the ball go into the end zone. Like you're not trying to give yourself a chance to set yourself up for
which was even
or better offense.
Sorry.
No, I agree. Yeah, special teams is going to be a big old fat question mark this year.
That's what I was going to say though. Is like it's going to be a question mark, but yet you could even still say it was markedly better than years prior.
Oh, absolutely.
Last year, and even then, like when the head guy of the special teams is saying, "Yeah, like we need to do better at this." Like, okay, they know it. Which not to keep bringing up Frost, or Wendy's Frosty guy, but like.
He didn't have a special teams coordinator until he was like pretty much
he had to
hiring one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, but then you go back and watch some of those old press conferences, which I really don't, but like every once in a while, I'm always curious, just like what did we come from? And then that's what I do. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't want to experience that pain anymore. But you can even tell, like there were moments special teams wise, offense wise, defense wise, where he's like, yeah, I'll have to go look at the tape, which every coach says that. But like there's times even after games where Rule will specifically say there was a 3rd and 8 or something like that I think cost us the game. And it's just there's a different mindset this year. And of course, we're all Nebraska fans. So of course we're all sitting here like, Kool-Aid, give me the judge. Right? Like I get it. But like objectively speaking, Nebraska should take a big step this year because we have all the pieces in place. Now I think the other question mark outside of special teams for me is just the coaching aspect. You could tell Rule is still kind of knocking the rust off of college football coaching last year somewhat. And I think he made some questionable calls. He owned them after he made them, of course. But like, you look at him, you're like, I don't want to see that kind of call again, unless it's like a ballsy type of call that, it's a high risk, high reward type of thing. I'm okay with some of those, but in certain cases where like Wisconsin's the example I always use, where I still don't think we should have gone for overtime. I think us as fans knew at that point, it's like overtime is not going to suit us well.
Nope.
But I think Rule had to take that. I think Rule had to also come into his own in finding that out. Like he was like, I trust my guys, the guys trust him. But it was a play that didn't work out. But it's not like it was a flea flicker type gamble.
Right.
And of course, if we would have won the game, we'd all be saying here, yeah, going to overtime was the greatest deal ever. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree. It's just I'm scared for special teams. And they really like this other kicker that they brought in, but it hasn't been our strong suit recently. And Rule has even said like it's kept him up a couple of nights trying to figure out what he's going to do on special teams. Obviously you take out that equation as you score on offense, so you don't have to worry or rely on that. But knowing us and knowing our history, that's not always the case either.
Yeah.
With that, so that's going to be the thing that I'm worried about. Thing I'm going to be watching the most as the season goes on is it improved? Is it getting better? Obviously, if it's getting worse, it's going to be really evident. But Tristan can be a good kicker. He's just it's consistency. Like last year, I mean, he's got the leg for some of those kicks. It's just being a young kicker, you just got to work on the consistency and the accuracy. And this is obviously coming from a guy that doesn't know anything about kicking, but
well, if NCAA football
pretty well in college football. So
I was gonna say, if NCAA football, the new one, has taught us anything, is that kicking is hard.
It's super hard.
I still I could even have like a 98 rated kicker, and it's like, here's a 54-yard field goal. I'm like, I'm still gonna miss this.
Right.
So,
And like you said, Zach, our optimism is not unwarranted either, because obviously a lot of things changed from last year. Obviously, the Dillon recruit commitment, bringing in Glenn Thomas. Those are obviously the big, huge pieces. If you look at the overall scheme of things of what happened between last season and this season, and then the schedule is very favorable up until that Ohio State game. And I know obviously
even the back half isn't necessarily unfavorable.
Wisconsin's not going to be looking that good. I have no idea what Iowa's going to look like this year with their new offensive coordinator, and McNamara stays healthy or somewhat like that. But UCLA under Eric Bieniemy, new first-time head coach. Lincoln Riley might be on the hot seat this year for USC too. So a lot of things could happen with that back half.
Gonna be real curious to see what USC brings for a defense, especially to the Big Ten, because I've seen nothing but memes everywhere where it's like UCLA, USC, I think Oregon might have been on there, and then like Washington all coming. And it's like a picture of like 4 really rough looking dogs, and then there's another one with like the rest of the Big Ten. I'm like, look, I understand I'm a Nebraska fan, so I'm not saying anything here, but that's pretty bold to think you're going to come in and just roll over people.
Right.
USC and UCLA are just going to come in and roll over the teams like Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan might be interesting this year too. I don't think they're necessarily a huge step back. Penn State, the Big Ten is not a pushover.
Oregon has the only validity to say that right now, and that's because we know who they are and what they are and what they're going to bring.
Oregon will be good, no doubt.
They're the ones that can come in and say we can roll over every team on our schedule, and that's why that Oregon Ohio State game somewhere in the middle of the season is going to be a huge determining factor of one, who's leading the conference standings, and then could be very much a preview for a potential playoff matchup again too, or a potential Big Ten championship matchup. And
this is the year of the 12 team playoffs, so this year's going to get super interesting with that, which is great. I love it. I'm ready for the 12 team playoff. So
I don't think the 12 team will last very long, because I think we'll get a couple of years of this, and then they'll be like, we need 16 teams or however many they want to expand to.
I was wondering where you were going with that, because I thought you were going to say they were going to shrink it, because I remember we were arguing 8, and I was like, there's no way they're going to start.
I think they'll add 16 at some point.
They're eventually just going to be like a March Madness bracket of like college football teams.
I think FCS does 32. So.
Yeah, and that's I can't speak to how they do their schedules and everything, but that obviously plays into scheduling, school semesters, so on and so forth with all that. But the thing I'm most interested in seeing is how the conference tiebreakers work. If you want to go look it up, the SEC released their tie-breaking scenario the other day. There was a point where if A through E are all met, the last option is a random draw to determine who goes to the conference championship. Not a coin flip, like a FIFA type-esque draw where they pull names out of however many teams are tied, and then that's who goes to the championship.
I'm okay with that, because based on that, you have to have so many. I'm surprised they don't use I guess I'm betting points scored or something is one of the
those are A through E. But if they don't, if none of those criteria are met, the last option is the random draw to determine who goes to the conference championship.
But I understand it's not 0, but what is the likelihood of that happening?
It's probably less than 1%. But
I was going to say it's got to be so low. It would be
saying there's a chance.
There is a chance. That's what's in there for a reason.
Honestly though, the random draw would be I don't know. Not that a coin flip is necessarily weighted in any way, but then a random draw, you can just be you see it, you watch it happen.
Right.
There it is.
They're especially with the Big Ten and the SEC of how many teams there are and how many good teams there are, there likely is going to be a chance where you have 3 or 4 teams tied at either 1 or 2 losses by the end of the season. So if that happens, these tiebreakers have to be in place, and then it's going to be how well do they work, who thinks they get snubbed, who doesn't think they get snubbed. Because that extra game, if you're tied at that point, might help boost your college football playoff chance too. Because if it's an 11, if there's 2, an Ohio State and let's just say Penn State both tied at 10-2 going to play for the conference championship, Ohio State could lose and still could get in just because that's the favoritism in college football playoff. I don't think it'll happen, but we just saw with this last year that Florida State gets snubbed for having an undefeated season. So like there's clearly favoritism in that committee.
That's the other thing too, is that now based on last year with Florida State, and I can't remember his name right now, the quarterback that got hurt, like you're going to see teams.
Yeah.
Yes. You're going to see teams that don't announce their injuries until after like these announcements happen. So like, and maybe the 12 team will help curb some of that, but you're still going to have it to where it's like, they're going to, unless it's like an obvious thing where like you go out and you see like where Dak Prescott that one year got his legs snapped like this.
Shattered.
Like,
yeah.
Like when you see that, you're like, that guy's probably not going to play next week. But like with it, because his was an ACL tear, right?
It was something with his foot.
It was something.
It was something. Like ankle, like
yeah.
It was something that was basically bad enough that it needed. I don't know if it needed surgery or whatever, but it wasn't obvious. Like he was hurt, and then they took him out the rest of the game, but they were up at that point. Whatever, it didn't matter. Right. But it was like, okay. But then, like people were like, oh, he could still play. His injury might not be that bad. And then they announced he wouldn't, and then they didn't put him in the playoff. It's like, it's like you're going to see teams do that now. And I mean, I get it, but playoffs going to be interesting this year. I'm excited for it, but it's going to be interesting this year.
It definitely will be, just because the tie-breaking scenarios, when the Big 12 and Big 10 release their scenarios, it's going to be super funny to see if they follow up what the SEC does with their suit and everything. But I'm like you said, Zach, I'm excited for an expanded playoff now. And then home playoff games are going to be electric.
I'm most excited for that.
Yep.
Because after the first round, then you get the bowl playoff games. But like that first round where you have home playoff games, it's going to be incredible.
Yep.
To watch. And you're going to have your Power 5 or your G5 teams go to these Power 4 schools for their playoff game. But that's still going to be incredible to watch. And what we had said last year with this playoff expansion, I mean, just like having UCLA I think USC plays Rutgers on like a Friday night this year.
Yep. That's like week 2, isn't it?
In Piscataway, which is super funny.
It's just
so like these teams are going to have to get used to that. They're going to have to get used to these environments in November, December, playing in cold environments that they're not used to. And this is mostly towards the Pac-12 schools, because obviously they didn't deal a lot with this, but it's something that they're going to have to get used to, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, 100%.
And for Dylan, obviously winning the Heisman.
I was gonna say the 12-team playoffs going to be weird. Just seeing Nebraska, making their first
obviously number 1,
appearance.
right? Obviously.
So.
I mean, I don't see how they don't. Like I said, there's not a single loss on the schedule that I see. So,
100% agreed. Lock it in.
But speaking,
if you're a betting person, boom, put that in right now.
12-0. Who says no?
On our little fun score predictions tab that we had last year, we were big brain thinkers ahead and gave our way too early season predictions for 2024.
Oh,
like I said, we were big brain thinkers that we thought of this ahead for this exact reason.
I like
that. I'll read off the records, and whether we want to stick to what our records were or not, we can adjust from there. But Nate had predicted, 8-4, and Zach and I both had 7-5 for this season. So
wait, did I end with 7-5 or did I go 6-6? Because I remember making a comment about how I need to be different.
We had predicted what this season's schedule record was going to be.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking what we did last year. Sorry.
No.
Following.
Like we were big brain in us predicting way too early of what this record was going to be.
Following. My bad.
So yes, Nate went 8. Nate had predicted 8-4 for the season, and Zach and I were both on the 7-5 train for this season. So we could debate.
Are we sticking with that?
Are we sticking? How we ended last year was I was at 6-6. Nate went to 7-5, and Zach nailed it with the 5-7 record.
Nice. That's good to know. I'll start with this, but it's not gonna be really a prediction. I'm gonna give my range.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think our this might be a hot take. I think our floor is 7-5. I legitimately think we can win 7 games. I don't want to say easily, but I think we can win 7 games. I think our first 2 games, if we win soundly, is going to propel us through the rest of the year. And like I think Ohio State's going to be our biggest challenge at that point. But 7-5 to me is our floor. Now is there a chance that we bottom out the floor? Sure, of course. But I think our ceiling, though, if I'm being totally honest, and this is where my hype train kind of takes over, but I'm trying to keep it objective. 9-3. I think there's 9 games on the schedule that we can win, and I'm going to say 1 is. I don't think we're quite to the level of beating Ohio State yet, unless we have our stuff really together and we just haven't seen it yet. It's not a 0% chance, but low chance. But then Nebraska typically gives up 1 or 2 that they shouldn't. So my 9-3 is predicated on that, where we're gonna lose a game that we shouldn't, and it might spiral us for a week or 2, or to end the season. But I'm still saying 9-3. That's my ceiling. But if I had to put a flag in the ground somewhere, I'll meet in the middle and say 8-4.
Okay, I'm sticking with. I mean, I'm changing mine, but I'm gonna stick with 8-4 as well.
You're coming over to the.
Yes. Just because I mean there's just, and this is probably all just the optimism and the hype of just what a new, better offense looks like, and if everything we've heard about Dylan is the real deal, I mean, he can get it done.
I mean, he was rated a 5-star quarterback,
right?
So
this is all derailed if he gets hurt, but I mean, I think there is enough in place. It's year 2, and typically how Matt Rule's tenures in year 2 are, you skyrocket year 2, and then you skyrocket even more in year 3. He had said last year that he thought year 1 was year 2 to him. So this is technically, year 3 in his eyes of coming into this program and changing it.
That comment alone got me so incredibly excited for no reason, because when he said that, I was like, bro, this is not what you should be telling us. It's like, no, don't be. He did. And then I'm like, my guy, stop.
Right. But yeah, I'm sticking with 8-4. Like Zach said, I think they're, your obvious games are probably going to be Ohio State, probably USC, maybe Wisconsin and Iowa. The games that, are the flashing ones that we typically don't win, shouldn't win. Again, I'm very intrigued to see how Wisconsin and Iowa play this year. As much as I wanted Luke Fickell, I don't really necessarily know if he's the right guy for Wisconsin right now. And then, with Iowa changing their entire offense and, Kirk maybe on the edge of getting out, let's see what they're like. But yeah, the 8-4, and then, obviously I could easily see 7-5 with dropping a game to Purdue or Indiana, a game that they shouldn't lose, but they happen to trip up or something like that. But yeah, I'll stick with 8-4 for now.
I think I've got a little wider goalposts on the range of outcomes, because I could genuinely see the floor being closer to 5 wins again.
Which is, it's a very, very much a reality too.
There's a scenario in my head where we go like 5-2 in those first 7 games, like not unreasonable. We get shellacked by Ohio State and just fall apart the rest of the season, and that wouldn't surprise me at all. I hope it doesn't happen. I'm fairly confident it won't, but probably more recency bias than anything is keeping that outcome in my head. I do think
that's fair though.
I would say 10 wins would be the ceiling.
Yeah.
If everything went our way. I think Ohio State, the obvious loss, and then I would say probably Wisconsin would be the other one.
Yeah.
I think this is probably just the optimistic whatever side, but I think this might be the year we actually, get over that Iowa hill and close out a game for once.
Yeah.
I think I would say Wisconsin, maybe USC. Just USC is a wild card of I don't know what they're going to far of a drop they're going to have with losing Caleb Williams and everything.
Right.
I mean, the biggest question from USC for me is how's their defense going to look too? Because obviously Caleb Williams being gone, that's going to be a huge question mark. But I'm sure Lincoln Riley, being the offensive guy that he is probably isn't going to have a problem with like putting together at least a competent quarterback.
Mhm.
Might not be than another Caleb Williams, but like their defense, being that he fired whatever his name was and got a new defensive
Bob
coordinator.
Diaco?
No, I don't think so.
The strain.
The strain.
But I am very curious to see how, because not only is it adapting to a new defense this year for him, it's adapting to a new defense in the Big Ten, and outside of what, an SEC move, Big Ten is up there with toughest conference defense. So I mean, if you have a good defense in the Big Ten, you're already a step ahead of pretty much everybody else in the conference. Look at Iowa. I mean, Iowa's a perfect example of this. They had zero offense last year, and they still somehow won, what was it, 10 games? It's just like defense wins championships in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee USC this year making that gigantic step. Not to say that they won't. I just think there's a lot. I think it's an uphill climb.
Yeah. And I go back to your point, Zach, of UTEP being the biggest game. I know a lot of people want to look forward to Colorado, and I mean, obviously I'm not shaming them or anything. I mean, Colorado is a huge game as well.
Oh yeah.
But I
first
think,
night game of the year, even huge game.
But before that, I mean, you have to come out against UTEP and assert everything that you practiced for this entire offseason. Because if you win that game by a score or two and it doesn't look great throughout the entire game, there's going to be some nervy feelings going into that Colorado game, and especially if Colorado handles North Dakota State, which I hope they don't. But
I think
that would be the.
I think they're going to have a rude awakening in that game.
I'm on the fence because I don't know if I want Colorado to win that game so that we could beat them, or if we just give them their second loss.
I think Colorado's going to win, but I think it's going to be a very stressful game for them.
I was going to say I don't think it's going to be a roadkill type game for Colorado like people are thinking it's going to be.
Because I would love all that hype to come into Lincoln of yes, they're 1-0. There's a chance that they're 2-0. Deion's back on again, and they just come in and get slacked at night at Memorial Stadium. That would be an insane storyline. Obviously, you lose that momentum if they lose to North Dakota State, but that's a hell of an opener.
I don't know, man. I think the momentum will still be there, and it'll be. I'm of the mindset if they win, the pressure is going to be on for Colorado. If they lose, the pressure is going to be on the fans that go to the Colorado game to absolutely destroy and just wither them down from a fan perspective.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's UTEP is, I think, the biggest game right now. And that's just in terms of getting a sense of what the defense, offense, special teams is all like. What's all that training? What's all that scrimmages? Once it comes together in a real lifetime opponent, what is that like for year two? And like I said, this entire season is going to be Dylan is story 1A. What is going to be story 1B for Nebraska? Who or what is going to control that secondary story? Because
what do you guys think it's going to be?
And that's
what is your 1B? If you had to figure out, if you had to guess what you think it's going to be. I think we've talked about it already. So
I think my hunch will be the defense not playing as well as we thought.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I want to nitpick the running back room and the wide receivers, I mean, the running back room is still needed to be figured out. But I think it's going to be, the defense didn't stop them on the plays that we needed to stop them, or didn't force as many turnovers as much as we wanted them. And Tony White and the defensive guys have been preaching is attack the ball. We need to force more turnovers this year, which they do. But we know they have the capability to do that. There were some crazy turnovers last year that they caused, but it wasn't enough to stem the tide and win the games too. So I think it's going to be, Dylan's going to be 1A. 1B is when the game is on the line and your defense is out there, can they win the games? And that's obviously what it was last year. And the answer was no, but our offense was also very much crap. But I think it's going to be, can the defense step up when they need to step up? And that's where they get a sack on third down, force a turnover when the game's on the line, or just get a stop when the game is on the line. And that type. So I think I think that's my 1B story for the season.
Go for it.
Mine, I would say, is similar, to what Andy's saying, a little broader, I guess. Just more the intangible, like winning the game and closing out a game, whether that is the defense, getting a sack on whatever in the fourth quarter, or it's the offense being able to run the clock without turning the ball over, or, running a successful 2-minute offense. Just that intangible, I don't know, closing out of the game and being able to, like, hey, we have a lead. It's not going away. Like,
Right.
We're comfortable here, and the game is over. Like, we're in control of it, and we're not gonna do some weird onside kick or throw a interception in the end zone or fumble it forward to Michigan.
First off, he was stopped. That forward progress was stopped.
But like, it's just putting it all together and having, I don't know if just the clean game would do that, but like,
sounds like you're saying almost like playing fundamental football to finish the game out.
And well, I mean, we haven't been a winning team for a while, and at some point you have to just bring that back into the culture somehow by winning games.
And that's,
you just got to win.
It's very evident, like you said last year, Nate, is the Maryland game specifically is that's a game Nebraska should have won, and we just Matt Rule said it himself. He made some bad calls there at the end zone. And the defense didn't get a stop to win the game there. That's easily a game that they should have won. Wisconsin probably is also another game that they should have won as well. So it's and the back-to-back games is, I think we had talked about this last night where Rule tried to overcorrect himself on the Wisconsin game and did too much to try to win that game because of what happened last week against Maryland. But yeah, I agree with your point there.
Yeah, just kind of, I don't know, shifting that psyche of, instead of like, if something bad does happen, instead of just completely falling apart, like being able to, even the boat a little bit. And
wasn't that kind of part of Rule's thing? I know we've kind of talked over these things before at this point, but I think Rule even said that last year. He's like, he's got to instill it in the guys that, if you make a mistake, forget about it in the sense of like, he might chew your ass as the head coach, but in a sense, like it's like, don't worry about it because you still have to play the game. It's like, so how do you get the doubt out of the heads? And I think that's what I took from what you're saying. It's basically just getting everything to mesh together this year to be like, even if you don't win the game, you have the chances to win. To where, you lost to say like Ohio State. If we do go 7-0 and you lose to Ohio State, it's like, we were 7-0 and we lost that game, but it was a hard fought game kind of thing.
Not letting it spiral from there.
Yeah. Like it's not like the Michigan game last year where they got 2 scores right away and you could just tell like Nebraska was just in over their head.
Yeah. And you look at the past 2 seasons where you start 0-2 and then the season before that, I mean, the Northwestern game, and then even the season before that, the Illinois game, that the Cam Taylor-Britt safety fumble, whatever. I mean, you start the season on a bad note each of those times, and it starts to spiral immediately.
Yeah,
and obviously, Nebraska didn't spiral last year, but it certainly didn't help starting 0-2 against Minnesota game that they should have won. Colorado so, but they were in that first half, just not the second half.
Colorado, or we would have beat. I still maintain this. We would have beat Colorado last year if we didn't have 4 fumbles or turnovers or whatever. Like
by the QB alone, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's important. That's why I think the UTEP game is so important because you have to get off to a good start. Yes, you set the tone, and you don't allow that week of murmurs chirping in leading up to Colorado of what happens if they go 0-2. What are we looking at again? Type. Discussion leading up into that game. You starting 1-0 is just huge. And whether you win against Colorado or lose, you don't want to be going 0-2 out of that Colorado game because then, the walls start closing in again. Just like they always have every single season. We do this again. So that's why UTEP is just so important. And not just to win, but to win comfortably at the same time.
Yeah, this is where I think the first game of the season is obviously I said at the beginning, like Colorado's the game I think to watch for, but UTEP is setting the tone for the year where it's like but it's setting the tone for us as fans.
Right.
Like they preached all of this throughout the offseason, like this is what we've been working on, this is what we did. They have a whole documentary which kind of plays into my 1B story is the Chasing Three. This whole offseason has been coached upon the idea of like how many games did they lose by just one possession last year, where a field goal would have either tied it, won it, whatever. To where
last 4 of those games.
Yeah. And so it's like Rule has taken that and made that his coaching ethos this year. Essentially, it's like our goal is to always chase at minimum 3, basically, where it's like where you're scoring in some way every drive. So that's my 1B is that whole chasing 3 concept, whether that's special teams, offense, defense, just putting the team together to say, you know, we need a drive here and the team finishing it out. Right. You know, it might be a gutsy long drive to finish it out. And it could be one of those where we're ahead by 3. And the idea is we're trying to chase 3 just to close it out fully. Fine with that. And it might be a 9-minute drive kind of thing. And it's one of those where you're just on your seat, the edge of your seat, just like, oh my God, is this going to end? But to that point, yeah, UTEP is 100% setting the standard for the year in the sense of like, they've done all this work in the offseason. Nebraska should handedly beat UTEP on paper. And if they don't win by 2-3 scores, I don't know. I'm almost going to say 3 scores. I'm going to be a little nervous depending on how the 2-score thing works. If it's like garbage time stuff, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, because the spread is minus
like 28 or something.
27.5. 28, yeah. So, I mean, Vegas and every sports book that you look at is, you know, 3 to 4 touchdown favorite over UTEP. And that's how it should be.
That we should.
We have to do that.
Yeah. I'm with that. And then I think if you even look at like the Colorado game, we're currently favored. Obviously, it'll change, but like we're currently favored to win that.
Which I think is a touchdown or maybe 8 or 9.
I saw 6.5 yesterday.
Yeah, so it's about a touchdown favorite for Nebraska right now.
Yeah.
God, that night game would be so fun to go to. I mean, I'm going to end up going to the UTEP game, which will be fun regardless. But that's even going to be different because that's an afternoon game. It's not a morning game. I was like, what the hell? So,
yeah. Speaking of that, if we just want to throw our predictions for that game right now,
I will say, I'm with 8-4. That the whole conversation, I'm staying at 8.
Oh yeah, I just realized we kind of trailed off a little bit there. Okay, so we're all stuck with 8-4 basically.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, I'm good with that.
Yeah, but then predictions for UTEP. I don't know anything about them, so I can't give you my educated opinion.
Last year, if that helps.
I can't give you my opinion of what they're like. But if the spread tells you anything, that everybody thinks that Nebraska should handily win this game. I'm not going with the spread. I'm going to go 38-14, just because I know first game jitters. I know Nebraska just they should go in and you should stop them like 42-7 or something like that. But first year, all the hype, all the emotion of Dylan, this year 2 and everything. It's just can Rule get those kids to not overthink and just play fundamental football, which we haven't been able to do for a while. So that's going to be the biggest challenge. Obviously, Nebraska still wins, but they probably let up a touchdown or 2 with that. But yeah, 38-14.
Nate, you or I?
I can go. I'm worried because UTEP has a freshman quarterback named JP Pickles.
No way. No way.
I don't know that he's going to be the starter, but
I want him to play now. I don't care who else is on the roster.
But I think I'm just going to go all in on it, and I'll say 52-7.
Okay. I like that.
I was gonna say if you take my score, I'm gonna be so mad.
I think we're just gonna let Dylan air it out, and I am going to run on the assumption that UTEP is going to sit around 3 or so wins again this year, and I think we're going to try and flex some muscles before the Colorado game.
I agree with that. Even though I didn't do that, but I agree with it.
I'm going to go in the middle then. I already was at this point, but what I was going to say is I'm going to hit like on the spread, depending on the day of, what way it leans. But I'm going with 45-17 with the caveat. I think the first half is going to be where they score like most of the UTEP being that case, where they score most of their points. Cause like that first half is going to be like, all right, we got the rust off. The second half, I think Nebraska is going to come out and finally get the ball rolling. I hope they get it rolling sooner than that. But my point being is that I think there's going to be some of that halftime stuff where you're like, oh, like, UTEP might be better than we think this year. And then Nebraska makes their halftime adjustments and then finishes out the year and says, onward we go. So
mine is I think JP Pickles comes in garbage time in the fourth quarter and everyone's happy. He scores a touchdown. It's good vibes everywhere. Yeah, that's my plan.
All right.
Is there anything else you want to talk about college football wise?
No.
I mean, I know we pretty much glazed Nebraska the whole time. I don't even know.
I mean, if we want to talk about who we think's going to win it all, my bet is between Georgia and Oregon. I think for the title, I think Georgia winning it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia's going to be kind of I don't know about unanimous pick here, but I think the only one I'd go against is maybe Ohio State.
I don't
almost
think
like a dark horse
of
pick,
winning
though.
it, but I think they finally get back to the championship.
I think Ohio State. I'll go Ohio State, and I'll go with my dark horse as first look. I'll go dark horse is Missouri.
See, a lot of people are high on them, and I don't know why.
Yeah, their coach is kind of a weirdo boss, so I'll ride that for a little bit, see how it goes.
Weirdo or Jim Harbaugh weirdo?
Different kind.
Different kind of weirdo?
From what I've seen, yeah.
Okay. Those guys are weirdos. Jim Harbaugh is definitely a weirdo.
Yes, he is. Very much so. Yeah. My pick, I think I'm agreeing with Georgia.
Against who, though?
Against who?
Yeah, just for fun. Any top 5 team you want, it'll probably be there.
Yeah, I got to think of who. You know what? I don't know if I think they're going to get to the finals this year, but this is a true dark horse pick just because I could see them bouncing back randomly. Clemson.
Okay.
I don't foresee it actually happening, but it's one of those things where I think Dabo is on the line where he has to actually prove that it wasn't just Trevor Lawrence holding his ass up the whole time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a Bill Belichick, Tom Brady situation here. I think this is where Dabo really, and I don't think he's necessarily a bad coach, but I still am not convinced that Clemson's going to be the one that like Ohio or Georgia would play, but I could see Clemson making a run, I guess is what I'm saying. So what the hell? We'll say Clemson.
I think my title game pick is we had a game last year where I didn't hate the teams necessarily. Like Michigan's wasn't like, awesome.
Michigan and Washington.
Washington was like, I'll watch it, I think we're going to complete like 180 that and be like 2 of the worst teams. So it's probably be like Ohio State, Texas for the championship.
Oh, I hope not. I mean, that's fair. I see what you're saying, but I really hope it's not Texas.
Yeah.
I think I'm really curious to see how Alabama fares this year because we all know with Nick Saban, like they were a pretty known quantity.
Right.
Now I'm very curious how what is his name? DeBoer. How DeBoer does.
DeBoer.
I think my pick hinges on how much Archie Manning is playing NCAA 25 now that he is converted. Is he taking over his life, or if he's gonna?
Hopefully, a lot.
I could also see. So I'm just going through like the top 25 on ESPN right now. I could also see Tennessee doing something weird this year. Like maybe I don't know about deep playoff run, but I could definitely see them having a year where like they came off last year, where they played really well last year, and then just kind of like at the end just kind of petered. But this year I could see them being like, nah. I've seen
I
a
would
lot of
say, as
people
of right
also
now,
say
not looking good for Florida State.
it is not. I have seen a lot of people say that like Nebraska could take like the same, maybe not necessarily in the same vein as like Tennessee did, but say the same trajectory as like what Josh Heupel took with Tennessee. I probably said his name wrong. I have no idea if I said it right or not.
You're pretty
Heupel.
close.
Mhm.
But like people are like, oh, Matt Rule could do that with Nebraska this year because I think last year was year 2 for him at Tennessee. I could be wrong. Maybe it was year
Mhm.
3.
Yeah.
Regardless, like I've seen a lot of people make that comparison where it's like they could have Nebraska could be not maybe to that level, like we've said, like 8-4, 9-3, like suddenly be like, oh, like they actually might have figured something out, you know.
Mhm.
I say I could see, like, I think playoff is a stretch, but I could see top 25 finish at the end of the season, like at least being within the realm of possibility.
For Nebraska,
Yeah, I wouldn't
Oh,
be like I'd be very happy. But I wouldn't be like overly surprised if
I'm not gonna
did
sit
make
here
it
and
up
say
there.
it's gonna happen, but I am hopeful that we can pull something like
Mhm.
that off.
It's
That would be
I mean it's kind of the conversation we've already had where it's like the potential overall
Mm-hmm.
is there. If they can reach it, I think that's probably
What are
a
you
top
saying? You don't want to
outcome
go
there,
for
but
another hour just repeating the same topics we just did?
I don't know how to go to work for another like 2-3 hours, so sure.
I should probably start getting ready for this wedding that I have to go to today. So,
Right.
is there? All right. Well, I know we kind of hit on our big stuff with college football, and
Yeah.
obviously, you know, we're back, baby. So, this will go out. This will probably go out a few days before next Friday, just so that way
Right.
we catch some of the other games. I don't know when it'll come out yet, but well, when you hear this, it's out. So,
Yes.
is there anything else sports wise that we wanted to touch on? I know Haley should be happy with us, Andy and Nate, because we all picked a hockey team this year. So now we have to follow
We
through with
did.
that. Andy technically already had one, but like I know I've got mine. I've got my backup team to cheer for, and so I'm good to go for when hockey rolls around in
Hell
2
yeah.
months.
Yes, Minnesota Wild will be good at the thing there.
See, and that's why you got your
Notoriously not
backup
good at.
team, and that's why you got your backup team of the Edmonton Oilers. Go Canada.
My
Connor
backup
McDavid.
team for professional sports at the moment is the Timberwolves. I'm assuming everyone else is going to be not great.
Oh, that's
But
a bold assumption.
The
You're
Wolves are
assuming the
back.
Timberwolves are going to be
So,
good.
The Wolves are indeed back. The streets are saying and confirming to me that the Wolves are back. So
Your street people are a lot different than my street people.
It is kind of interesting that people in the streets are saying that Minnesota is back out in California, if I'm being honest. But hey, far be it from me to tell them that they're wrong.
Your street people are weird.
When you know ball, you know ball. That's all I gotta say.
I'm just mainly curious when it comes to the NBA to see how the Suns do this year with Mike. I don't know how to say his last name. Bodenholzer, I think his last name is. They got rid of Frank Vogel after 1 year. So obviously the new owner of the Suns is like, I want to win.
He
And I'm
won
like,
a championship with Alex.
You're going to be favored, Andy. So you're going to have the target on your back all season.
I know. But I'm just happy that I won't have to be as mad watching Alex play anymore because he's on the team.
I am interested to see OKC. I think I'm just a little more interested to see Phoenix though, because you could make the, I don't know, Minnesota leap if you want, like where you had Bradley Beal come in and it didn't necessarily work great-ish. Like it worked, but not.
It was hurt all the
flow
time.
wasn't there, and so hopefully you can take that leap of things gelling better and
right.
Yes,
I know I keep saying this as like sports start up again, but like football is always the one I'll watch always. But like I really, really am excited to start watching basketball, and I'm going to try to follow it a little better, like actually watching it this year, just because like last year, about like 2 months in, just the Suns just were like, oh, they kept getting hurt. I'm like, well, this is pointless. Like you can even tell, like going into the playoffs, I was like, whatever. Like they're not playing themselves very well. So
right. All
right. Well, I think we're caught up. So
next thing we'll talk is we'll have seen Dylan Raiola's official debut as a Nebraska Cornhusker.
Yep. I'm projecting many touchdowns,
mountains
many
of Kool-Aid.
all Memorial Stadium will be flooded with Kool-Aid by the time the game's over. That's
Death by Kool-Aid. That doesn't sound like a bad thing. All right. Well, unless you guys got any last thoughts before we sign off.
Mm-mm. Go Skurs.
Skurs
Always
by
by
90.
90.
Skurs by 90. All right. Well, that's been Nate and Andy. I've been Zach. This has been the Sportsball Podcast. We thank you once again for checking us out. Check us out on all of our socials on Facebook, Twitter, all the other ones that are out there. We probably don't have enough, but we're out there. Check us out at Sportsball Podcast or, whatever. You'll see it in the descriptions of wherever you consume your podcasts. And we will see you next time. Bye.